How you doing, folk? So I was recently introduced to this Jimmy Dore, whoever he is, and it was on something today with that of capitalism. Happens to bring up about everything to do with Texas, etc., shortages and whatever. Let's just go on to his argument.
Okay, guess what? America is capitalist, and socialists, they have food lines and they can't take care of their people. And that's why in Venezuela, oh, wait, this is in Texas. Thousands of cars lined to collect food in Texas.
So first of all, he tries to call the United States of America this capitalist country, even although it's not living under individualism, but it's that desperate attempt to try and pull capitalism outside of individualism to try and correlate it around what you see today in the United States. Apparently the United States of America is this capitalist country, and that Texas is somehow facing this food shortage crisis because of capitalism.
Here's some of the pictures. This is real. This is in America right now. Richest country in the world, ladies and gentlemen. These are people in their cars lined up to get food in America.
So there you go, folks. It's basically this attempt to try and blame capitalism. Of course, Texas been faced with this, shortage crisis or whatever, and because of a weather disaster. He's trying to blame everything in capitalism for why they're, facing this problem that they've got. First of all, here's a post. Have a look at this. Texas is its own electrical grid and plenty of excess power generation capability, yet right now millions of Texans are freezing in the dark. Here's why. Texas both produces and consumes more electricity than any other state. Texas' abundant natural resources, including natural gas, coal and wind, are readily available to fuel our power plants. Texas is the only one of the contiguous 48 states with its own standalone electricity grid. One of the three main grids in the US, the Eastern Interconnection, Western Interconnection, the Texas Interconnection. The Texas Interconnection, which covers 213 of the 254 Texas counties, is managed by the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or the ERCOT. Portions of the Texas near the state's borders are covered by the eastern and western grids. Texas produces more electricity than it consumes and maintains a buffer referred to as the state's reserve margin. This margin ensures that we should never have to suffer from rolling blackouts like California. Then why are so millions of Texans without power right now? Why are we dealing with rolling blackouts? The answer is all too familiar: our relationship with the federal government. In anticipation of this unprecedented power demand, Texas could have maxed out power generation, however we couldn't. Like a lowly beggar, Texas had to first ask for permission from the federal government to generate enough power to keep our people warm. Why? Because cranking up our power plants to full production might violate federal pollution limits. There is clear metaphor here. Texans were powerless because our elected officials coded authority to a slow-moving, uncaring gaggle of federal bureaucrats. At the end of the day, it's the typical story where the federal government creates a problem, all in the name of their climate change nonsense, right? They always create a problem. They've already all regulated the private sector and created a problem in each state across the United States. But these people want to sit and pretend that somehow you've got true private ownership. When you look at the United States of America, it's a country that's rancid with all the socialist government interventionism. It's the same story with the American healthcare system or the American education system. It says, oh, look at capitalism, look at the state of our healthcare and education. It's all capitalism's fault. So like, aye, okay, whatever you say, just keep talking your crackpot nonsense, but right, whatever.
This is in America. It's not 1933. This is 2020. Richest country in the world. Just gave $5 trillion to the richest 1,000 people in the world.
What planet does he live on? The United States of America is a country that's sitting more than $220 trillion in debt because of all the social security, because of all the unpaid pensions, because of all the liabilities are bailing out the banks. That's because of his socialism, of course, that created all that problem. Yet he's trying to call the United States of America a rich country. How the hell can you be sitting so far in debt and be rich at the same time? See, if that was the case, then why don't we just all borrow money, put ourselves so far in debt, and then go out and borrow and spend on a Ferrari, drive about in a Ferrari and pretend we're rich. That's not going to make you rich. You owe that money back, or that one go right over your head.
So when they passed the CARES Act, Bernie Sanders and the squad were supposed to make sure stuff like this didn't happen, and they didn't. They did nothing for you.
Folk, don't even listen to this nonsense when it comes to this stuff today with the Affordable Care Act and all this other pish. These are the sort of people that buy into all that nonsense. Really all it is just politicians making you promises just so that, they can take power. Governments try to, pass anything that will serve its own self-interest and to give to special interest groups. It was the same thing when it came to the 1930s with the Great Depression, and FDR ended up prolonging the Great Depression through all his policies. Take, for example, everything in the name of trying to make things more affordable. He restricted the productive output of the food. It caused the prices to soar out of control. Who did it benefit? A special interest group such as the farmers, etc. But it hurt the consumers. Bernie Sanders promised us this Affordable Care Act and everything. He can promise you pie in the sky for all I care. He couldn't give you anything more affordable. Now the problem is when it comes to things like healthcare and your education and stuff like that, it's all subsidised. That's the reason why it's in that mess to begin with. Oh, Bernie Sanders can just wave a magic wand and he can come in and he can make everything more affordable. It's a bit like the same pish that you hear when it comes to the NHS. Every 4 years you'll hear this complete and utter nonsense about how the NHS is available for everyone. It's more affordable. And they repeat that nonsense on and people buy into that complete and utter pish.
One woman told the station she had been struggling. I haven't been working. I can't find a job. They cut off my unemployment. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
So what's that got to do with capitalism? The fact that they've gone through a pandemic and all sorts, and they've been through lockdowns and all this crap. Many people have been left without a job. Many businesses have had to close down. That's the fault of government. This is a typical example. Government creates a problem and then they say, look what capitalism caused. Texas is not exactly this free market economy. He wants to have you believe that somehow it's this free market economy. It's a capitalist country. Laughing stock.
It's really amazing. And I thank God I was able to get in this line this morning. North Texas Food Bank is distributing more than 600,000 pounds of food. November 14th event. Jesus, H, F, and H, God. Hey, by the way, if your God's real, just remember he's the opposite of a capitalist.
What if these folk go against charity? I honestly can't comprehend that for the life of me. Not one of them complained about folk on the welfare state. They say, we need the welfare state. The welfare state looks after people and everything, right? They'll encourage it. And see, when folk go into the welfare state, they won't even utter a single word about it. When it comes to charity, when it comes to things like food banks, then they start complaining about it. You see, the difference is, with these food banks, that's provided through voluntary action. When it comes to the welfare state, that's not funded through voluntary action. But of course, he doesn't even touch upon that.
Does your skinny bill contain another round of stimulus checks for all Americans?
No, it doesn't. But it does address an awful lot of things that we do agree on.
No, there isn't a stimulus check for the people in America. No, we're not going to be helping people. But there is stuff that we agree on in there, like giving Wall Street more money. So we're going to do that.
Well, isn't that truly magical? I agree with you. They shouldn't be giving the money to that of Wall Street, etc. And do you want to know why they give money to Wall Street? Which is, of course, to do with socialism, where your socialism forced everybody into a collective group and then forced them to collectively pay for the losses of others. So in other words, all your subsidies to, subsidise, the likes of Wall Street. So your socialism's actually to blame for that. Through your socialist government protectionism, they automatically just assume, like Wall Street, like private banks, therefore it must be something to do with capitalism. Yeah, let's just completely ignore the fact that these private banks were the same ones calling out for more socialist subsidies. And let's just forget the fact that your federal government created an exclusive monopoly right in the hands of the likes of the Federal Reserve. And let's also forget the fact that they were getting away with their fraudulent behaviour because of your socialist government protectionism. But we'll just ignore all that. Because what does that matter? What does it matter about your socialist fixing of the interest rates and your socialist fixing of the ratio? Nah, we'll just brush that aside because, What does that matter? It actually matters quite a bit. You're going on about Mitch McConnell, and then you start talking about stimulus checks and stuff like that. Can you actually tell me something? How can your country afford all these, was it $2,000 stimulus checks or something? How can they actually afford to give you that when they're more than $220 trillion in debt before the crisis even came about with the pandemic? Then once you started facing the pandemic, there was trillions pumped into the economy, all in the name of stimulating the economy through bailouts, etc. Your country's broke. You're not a rich country. You're a country that's in serious economic crisis. In fact, your dollar's about to collapse. We can actually see that here, how much they've pumped into the economy through the printing press. The sad thing is about people like yourself, you're the sort of person who would look at that and you wouldn't even see a problem with that. That's the remarkable part that I can't even understand for the life of me. And then you try to call that capitalism. How was that capitalism? Capitalism was the gold standard. That was the free market money. Where is it? That's right, it's no there, is it? How can you blame the market then? You just automatically assume, oh look, Wall Street, there's capitalism.
Nancy Pelosi, same thing.
And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that to you in person.
Right. Madam Speaker,
virtually.
these are incredibly difficult times right now, and we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for joining
we'll
us.
Leave it on the note that you are not right on this, Wolf, and I hate to say that to you.
This is Nancy Pelosi defending her decision not to give us stimulus checks during the coronavirus.
And I'll tell you why she wasn't going to give you the stimulus checks. These politicians make you promises to win your vote, but the promises that they make to you are unrealistic to begin with. That's the point that you don't get. They've no got the money there in order to give you it. They just made the promise in order to win your vote. That's all they wanted to do. It's not like they can actually give you that. How can they give you something that they can't? They can't afford it. This is the problem that you don't understand. They've already had to run the printing press at a massive scale in order to bail out all these other businesses. I mean, eventually you're gonna face hyperinflation. That's the part that people like yourself don't understand. People like you live away in cloud cuckoo land. You live away in planet Zorb somewhere where you think you can just run the printing press like it's no tomorrow and there's no consequences for your actions because you don't even understand what you're even going on about. And if you can't even see a problem with this was right up to about 2008. So you imagine how much your dollar is worth now. And especially after 2020. How'd that turn out in Zimbabwe? How'd that turn out in the likes of Chile? How'd that turn out in the likes of Venezuela? But that's right. That's exactly where people like yourself are going to take the United States of America. And it's guaranteed. It's going to come. Your country's going to face hyperinflation and there's going to be people that will lose their entire life savings because of people like you, because you're irresponsibility.
I am sensitive to them because I see them on the street begging for food, begging for money. Madam Speaker, thank you so much.
Have you fed them? We feed them. We feed them.
We'll continue this conversation down the road for sure. We'll take a quick break.
Oh, really, Nancy? You feed them? Do you work for the North Texas Food Bank, Nancy? Oh, you don't? Oh, that's right. You're part of the government that exploits them.
So you acknowledge the fact that the government is the one that exploits them, yet you try to blame capitalism for the cause of your problems. Government is a problem. In fact, it's arguably the biggest problem. You call out for more government. You call out for more stimulus checks and all sorts. Maybe if you actually removed the government from the economy, you might actually, fix the economy. Instead, you just want to perpetuate the problem through more borrowing, through more spending, and you seem to think that's fixing the problem. So what the hell are you calling it for more government for? There's a penny road dropped yet?
Even if it means you starve and die, it ain't gonna happen.
And what it proves to me is just how ignorant most folk are when it comes to the study of economics and economic history. It proves beyond all reason of doubt that most of you don't even understand what capitalism is. Right now in the United States of America, your entire private sector is all regulated by the state. You're living under a corporatist regime. Why are you living under a corporatist regime? All your socialist government interventionism that created the monopolies, the oligopolies. Just look at your healthcare system. See, the problem with folk like yourself is you don't even have a clue what you're going on about when it comes to that of describing what capitalism is. You don't get the fact that the government's the one that's picking and choosing winners and losers, because it goes right over your head.
This is capitalism. That's capitalism. That's the United States. That's capitalism. That's a bread line. That's what that's called. Remember they used to have bread lines, soup lines back in the Depression? This is a modern day bread line, and it's thousands and thousands of cars long.
FDR had actually restricted the productive output, all in the name of somehow apparently protecting that of the farmers. All he was doing was all in the interests of the giant trusts and stuff like that. That's all his policies were about. It wasn't about protecting the consumer. If you restrict productive output, you're going to harm the consumer. You don't even understand that the serious problem you've got was between a weather disaster in Texas and something else today with a problem that just so happens to be that your federal government has, escalated the problem. Folk listen to people like you and they believe all the pish that you talk. Anyway, I'm going to finish off celebrating 55. Talk to you later. Cheers.